I open this service with a prayer, and I open this prayer with what I know to be the most potent words I can speak. Thank you. Thank you for the kindness and love we see all around us. And thank you for the connecting bonds we make in this community of warm and loving beings every Sunday. Bonds that help us to feel our oneness more personally. Thank you for guiding, guarding, and protecting us as no earthly guardian can, with the deep inner eternal kinship of our hearts and soul. Continuing this prayer, I recognize that there is only one God, known by many names, but still only one. One Father, Mother, Parent, Creator of the one life. That life is perfect, complete, and divine, and it is my life now, and the life of all people, all animals, all nature. All of us here, out there, everywhere, all coming together as one family. So from a place of divine and universal wisdom within each of us, I declare our hearts and minds open as we show up here this morning to learn the spiritual principles that form the foundation of our faith, and to trust what we know is true of spirit within us. Today, tomorrow, eternally, and so it is. Good morning. Welcome to the Louisville Center for Spiritual Living. I am Pat Ferguson, your spiritual director for 2022. I hope you've had a great week. Today is a special day for us as we have a very interesting workshop happening today at 12 noon. So when service is over, just turn off your camera, grab a sandwich, and then come back and join our special guest speaker, Rev Toni Lamotta, for a 2-hour session on the Enneagram. What's the Enneagram? Well, let me see if I can make it simple. If you've been told you're a bit overly analytical and always want to know too much about how something works, then you're probably a number 5 out of 9. And you probably want to be here to connect with our speaker and find out what that means, how it can affect your life, how you can change it, and or how you can use it to your advantage. The cost is a suggested love offering of $25 that you can donate on PayPal or send a check to the P.O. box. We'll give you some more information on that. You just mark it for the workshop. But I want you to know that no one will be turned away. If you're a little strapped right now, do not worry about it. Come and join us because we know you will be blessed by being there. And during the service today, Reverend Toni will talk about understanding the 3 faces of God in her talk, and it's going to be a great day all around. So let's get it started. As is my custom, I open my morning prayers before service to welcome the day and the week, and I light our God candles so it'll be shining warmly and brightly to welcome you in. I hope it's the first thing you notice when you pop into the Zoom room. And welcome you we do, no matter what denomination you were brought up in or you came from, or if this is your first faith experience. All are welcome here. And the most important thing for you to remember is that you are welcome here. Join us in saying our mission statement and vision statement. To teach personal transformation as a virtual community, living the principles of science of mind, and celebrating all paths to God. And our vision statement, a world that honors and respects all people. So let's get this party started with our opening song, What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yeah.
I'm grateful for the waters of life that sustain ye. Welcome, our practitioner of the week, Vicki Jeter, for our spiritual reading and meditation.
Good morning, everybody. That song just tickles me so much. I don't know if you guys have noticed, like I have, that video actually does an overview of everything we've been talking about. It just absolutely tickles me. And so for our reading today, leading into Reverend Toni's topic of the three faces of God, we're going to do just a moderate review of some basics. There must be, and there is, a universal consciousness which directly responds to our thought and is in contact with us. Not only does the human heart long for such a possibility, but the human mind comprehends, understands, senses, feels, and knows it's true. There are moments when the individual consciousness feels itself merged with the universal. Then it knows and no longer asks for explanations. The heart longs for, the mind comprehends, and the intellect needs such a contact. The influx of the divine ideas stimulating the will to divine purposefulness within each and every heart. It is fundamental to belief that there is a presence in the universe with which we may consciously communicate and which will consciously respond to us in communication, in, through, and as every expression. We hold this as fundamental to any consistent philosophy of religion, not only because we long for and actually need it, but because such a presence is an inevitable necessity. It's an inevitable reality. The idea of our personal relationship to spirit is not there without reason. It is a proclamation that the spirit indwells our own soul and that we intuitively, consciously are of the divine. That instinctive sense of the divine presence, which is inherent in all of us, is all there is, and it's true. And in the state of each person's intellectual capacity to perceive the truth, it comes out, and to each of us becomes our God. And it's unique to each individual, no matter how many ways we talk about it in common. Both of those things are equally true all the time. It is forever proclaiming its own being. There is a power and presence in the universe which responds to us so completely, so perfectly, that we shall be amazed when we realize how completely and perfectly it's been. But it can only operate for us through us. Our communication with God must of necessity be and always remain an inner light. We communicate with God, and God expresses in, as, and through us. With that as our launching, I invite each of you to relax into your personal place of comfort for our meditation. And this is a guided meditation today. Just take that pausing breath, create that space that shifts from taking in a sacred reading into your own world, your own communion with spirit, and allow my words to act as your guide if you so choose, or perhaps take your own little journey along the way. Finding that comfortable, relaxed place inside, just consider for a moment, just for fun, even if you're so grounded in the idea of oneness with spirit that you haven't really thought of God in multiplicity lately, just for fun, let's imagine that there are three faces of God. And realizing that God meets me where I show up. God meets me where I show up. And each and every being, God shows up where we show up. So as God meets me where I show up, here you are in this very comfortable, very familiar, relaxed place for you. And you're inviting three faces of God. Now, you might see them coming all together, or you might see them coming one at a time. But as we know, we can actually only engage fully presently one thing at a time. Whether you see your three faces of God all at once, or whether they're coming to you individually, where does that begin for you? If you think about the face of God in your understanding, and you say, what comes first in my relationship with God? How does God appear to you in this moment? Is there communication that you can hear? Is it appearing as familiar to you? Or is it something brand new? And if you make eye contact, if you make heart contact, how does that feel? How does it feel to know that we can have this universal understanding that there is only one, and yet at the same time, there can be intimate, individual relationship? And so, having made connection with your first face of God, invite the settling and make a shift, and recognize you have two more. You have two more choices in this moment. And if you say to yourself, what is my second face of God? What is a second understanding that I have, or question that I have about spirit and my relationship to it? Where do I show up in relationship to God? And where does spirit meet me What does this face of God appear as? Is there communication that you can hear? And how does it feel? And as you breathe and let that in, recognizing, oh my goodness, there is yet a third opportunity here. And so you invite your second relationship with God to settle comfortably with the first, and you greet your third face of God. And in that third face of God, as you have become increasingly comfortable with this opportunity, just imagine, do you have a question that has been before your altar in the universe? Is there a question that you would like to ask, or a prayer request? If you're in direct communion with where God meets you, and you can see there is no separation, it's right here, right now. What might you ask? And what might you accept in a treatment level of prayer? What might you affirm for yourself in direct communion with your relationship with God right here and right now? Breathing deeply and allowing it all. Invite that third aspect of God for you to make itself comfortable in this most lovely internal place, and invite them to stay. There is an extended conversation happening here, and how much fun will that be? And so as you find everyone settled in for our presentation this Sunday service, thank you, thank you, thank you. We just release it into the law and let it be, and so it is.
So it is. Thank you, Vicki. Our special music today is One Power by Daniel Naiman.
One power, one power, one power. There's one power invisible, and you see it everywhere and every day. One power indescribable, and you speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth, as simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angels' wings or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, oh, one power, one power, one power. We speak so many languages, have different clothing, different colors, different names. But different is only dangerous when we forget that in the heart we're all the same. And we'll remember once we close our eyes to see that such distances were never meant to be. it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angels' wings or heaven's door. It's Muhammad, it's your mind, it's your soul or it's your sign. It's the universe, it's music, Mother Earth or Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, oh, one power is what we are. One power, oh, one power. It's the moment of creation. It's an everlasting peace. It's the freedom of forgiveness. It's the sweetness of release. It's the joy of inspiration. It's the sunshine on your face. It's the birthright of all nations. It's the boundlessness of space. It's the beauty of a baby. The serenity of sleep. It's the anger you abandon for the love that's most deep. It's one power. It's one power. What we are is one power. Oh, it's the power of the love that lives forever in you and me. It's the power of the love in you and me.
Thank you, Daniel. He's a favorite of ours. Okay, I got tired when I read this little bio for Reverend Dr. Toni, because you're not going to believe all that she does. But anyway, today we welcome Reverend Dr. Toni Lamotta as our guest speaker and workshop facilitator. Reverend Toni is a best-selling author and spiritual life coach, supporting people in midlife and beyond to reinvent themselves and to show them how to age consciously. I think I need that. Her experience truly runs the gamut. She's been a Catholic nun, a computer programmer, a dinner theater actress, an entrepreneur, a professional speaker. She is an ordained Center for Spiritual Living minister and teaches at the Florida campus of the School of Spiritual Leadership and online worldwide, covering topics such as integral stages of development, embracing aging, the Enneagram, and more. And she is the author of the best-selling book, What You Really Want, Wants You, uncovering 12 qualities you already have to get what you think is missing. She is one busy lady. So we're excited to have her. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Pat. I love to take on big things and big questions. So today we're taking on the question, who is God? Don't you love it? You know, how do you know that? What do you know is the truth? If I asked you that today, who is God for you? How would you answer it? So you don't have to say that out loud, but I'd like you to start thinking about, how is it that you know God? What's your picture of God? And Vicki did a beautiful job of that. asking us to picture that. I don't know about you, but I was like, ooh, and there's more, and there's more. And so the other question is, how has your idea of God changed over the years? It most likely has, or you wouldn't be a new thought. You know, a few years ago, I read a book and started to learn the theory called spiral dynamics. And it came across on our minister listserv. We have a communication among ministers, and it got me started on thinking and teaching that many of our churches have been talking about. And it led me to really study the philosophy that's now known as integral theory. Any of you, I'd just love to see a show of hands. How many have heard of integral theory? Vicki, she's been in my classes, so yes. Okay. Well, interesting then, I get to introduce you to it. It's basically, you're going to love this, a philosophy of everything. So it's absolutely impossible to explain it in a short period of time, but I'll just touch a little bit because I was intrigued, and I've been studying it ever since and coming to really a deep appreciation for the way we develop and grow. And I know this group is open to learning and certainly open at the top. And so Ernest was actually taking an integral approach, even though integral theory didn't even exist during his time. But what he was looking at is the synthesis of what's common in all religions. I always love that. I know it's not truth unless everybody says it. Think about that. Sometimes I often think of, if I disagree with someone, it must mean I haven't come to the truth. Because when you reach truth, everybody says, yes. And so I love that Ernest Holmes did that. And so I'm going to invite you to hear the message that I'm about to share with you today with an open heart and an open mind. And then even try on some of the questions and some of the practices I'll be mentioning and see if it doesn't enhance your own spiritual practice as well as your life. So I ask again, who is God? And I remember very often when teaching spiritual mind treatment, we learn that it's praying as God. And actually, I think most people find that rather challenging when they first come into New Thought because they're so used to praying to God. And then in New Thought, we give up praying to God and we pray as God. So today I want to talk about praying as God, to God, and reflecting about God, all three. And one of the main premises of integral theory is that we all have different perspectives in life, and we interpret things according to where we are in our spiritual development. When you really understand that, it helps you to understand people you disagree with. They're just at a different stage of development, and they can only see things from their perspective. That's what the integral framework teaches us to do, to accept all people everywhere and know that we all go through those individual growth stages. And the other piece that it teaches us is that every event in life has an interior piece, an exterior piece, an individual piece, and a collective piece. And I'll explain that, don't worry. Actually, all of life can be seen in three dimensions or from three viewpoints: the I, the you, or the we, and then the it. So let me give you an example. Suppose somebody came for the first time to this service. And then they went home and their partner wasn't with them, and they talked to their partner, and the partner said, "What happened?" And they could answer it, "Well, first there was some music, and then a couple of people spoke, and I think somebody led a meditation, and then there was a speaker, and so on." It would describe what happened. And then their partner might say to them, "Well, did you meet anybody?" Oh yeah, there was some people there that I already knew. Pat was there and Vicki, and then there were a couple of lovely couples as well. And And, sometimes when they meet together, they have refreshments and there were a bunch of new people and so on. So you get that. That's the you perspective. Who was there? And finally, the partner might say, how did you feel? What was the experience like? And you say, I'm not sure. There were some things about it I didn't quite understand. And there were some things I really loved. And well, that's the I perspective. And if you only give one perspective or even two, you're limiting the understanding of any experience. So to access any experience that we have, for simplicity, I'm going to use the words about, to, and as. So it's about the facts, what it is or what has happened. It's to, how you interacted and who you related to. And then it's as, what was inside of you and how you felt. So the about, the to, and the as. Or for those of you who are into English grammar or any modern language, it's the first person I, the second person you, and the third person it. And in integral theory, we understand that each perspective is true, but they're all partial. So where am I going? What's she talking about anyway? How does this relate to God? So let's look for a moment at Jesus and our master teacher and how he viewed God. And certainly Ernest Holmes used Jesus as a model for our life. And regardless of your experiences and your relationship to Jesus, I like to think that what we're living as religious scientists is what I would call a Jesus patterned life. That's what we're aiming at here. And Jesus reflected about God, the it. He related in prayer to God. He actually called God by the affectionate term Abba, Daddy, in fact. And then he related as God when he said things like, the Father and I are one. So when I talk about three faces of God, I'm talking about three ways that we all relate or we can relate to God. So let's look at the first, the it. God is not a being, it's the ground of all being. Sometimes we call it the web of life. And think about all the galaxies there are, some light years away, the Sombrero galaxies, 2.8 million light years away. And then there are quarks and the Higgs boson and the DNA and now all those amazing images. I don't know how many of you have seen the images from the James Webb telescope. It's beyond our understanding, and that's the amazing infinite God. And I spent some time here I live in Sarasota, Florida, and I was invited to speak and to do some workshops at something called the Cosmic Center here in Sarasota. And their spirituality includes things that are not quite part of my vocabulary. They're really out there, I would say. You get the name Cosmic Center, it tells you. But I found myself after a while hanging out with them asking the question, is my God big enough? They seem to have a much bigger God. And so I asked myself, and I invite you to ask, how do I relate to this infinite God? My experience there made my God bigger. So question is, how big is your God? Interesting. And when you study theology, as I have, you find there are three ways of looking at this infinite God. One is the theistic, that God and the universe are separate. Then there is pantheistic, which God is the universe, they're the same. And then there's panentheism, which is more what we believe in New Thought, that God is in the universe and the universe is in God. So I guess we can sum up simply the infinite face of God by saying, in God we live and move and we have our very being. The beingness is God. And then I also think that music is one way that you can really think about the different faces of God. I actually think in music sometimes. When people speak, I hear songs in my head. It's quite interesting. I wake up with music every day. It's quite, I used to be a music director in a church, among other things. And one of the songs that strikes me as the infinite face of God is the very old song, How Great Thou Art. And it's a way of reflecting on the infinite face of God. And I know that that song may seem like some theology that you left behind, but when we have an integral approach to life, we leave nothing behind. We not only transcend things, we also include all things. So it becomes not, I'm not a recovering Catholic, for example. I include all the good that I've had over my life. We never throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so we might not use a song like this on our weekly celebration, but at times in our life, it's very appropriate. And I'll give you an example. I had the awesome experience of going on one of the Abraham Hicks cruises to Alaska a few years ago. And one of the side trips that I took was a helicopter ride that landed on a glacier. Now, even as I speak, my whole body is in chills. And the moment I stepped out of that helicopter, my eyes just filled with tears. I looked around me in awe and began spontaneously singing, How Great Thou Art. I really do. I still get the chills. That is the infinite face of God. That is the bigness. You've been in a sunset. You've been at the birth of a baby. You've been in places where you're like, God is beyond anything I ever knew. And it's a mystery. There's so much more. But then there's a second way to look at God and to relate to God. I mentioned Jesus called God Abba. And in his day, by the way, father also meant mother. So it was one word for both. And you can say he called God daddy and mama. And we often speak of the word at Christmas time, especially Emmanuel, God with us. Mother Teresa called God her master, or God her beloved. And Mary Magdalene used the word Rabboni, meaning her master. In India, they speak about your Antiyarman, and that God for whom Krishna, for some, Jesus, or your evolved big brother, or Buddha. For others, it's simply a loving presence. It's what you mean even when we look at each other and we say namaste. What we're seeing is the intimate face of God. We reveal it in one another. I know you know Karen Drucker's music, and she has the song, You Are the Face of God. I hold you in my heart. What we're saying here is, I see God in you. I see God in me. I also think of a song that, excuse me, Ricky Byers-Beckwith used to sing all the time, which is The Intimate Face of God. And it was the song, Use Me, O God. And I have to tell you that when I first heard that song, when I was first a minister in New Thought, which is a lot of years ago now, it used to bother me because she was talking to God. And, we didn't talk to God in New Thought. And the words were, I used to think God is the sun. God is the sun and so much more than the earth and the sky and all of creation. God is creator. Use me, O God, I stand by you, and here I'll bide as you show me all that I must do. Well, that's relating to God at its best. There is another musician. If you don't know her, I'll introduce you to her. Her name is Elaine Silver. She's here in Sarasota, and she is one of my favorite singers. And she used to sing a song, Have no fear, God is everywhere, God's right here. And the essence of the intimate face of God comes from the Psalms. I can never be far from your presence. So what do you call the God who loves you like a father and mother? So we said before, is your God big enough? Now I'm going to ask, is your God close enough? Do you have an intimate way that you relate to God? Do you carry on a relationship? And I know when I came to New Thought, and even now, I think sometimes when I speak at churches, I find that this is a missing piece. And many people say, we don't pray to anyone. But I want you to remember to keep an open mind. And I ask yourself, what is my personal relationship to God? Do I talk with God? Is my God close enough? I don't know about you, but there are times in my life that treatment doesn't work because I'm not quite there. But I can say, oh my God, help me, please. And I reach out in some of the old ways. And remember, in integral theory, it's transcend but include. You know, I think all churches and religions emphasize either one or perhaps two of these faces. The fundamental churches stress having a personal relationship with God, and in particular with Jesus. But I think that newer churches sometimes have thrown the baby out with the bathwater, as I said. And so to have a fuller appreciation and experience of everything, remember you need all three dimensions. So if you left out this second dimension when you came to New Thought, I invite you today to rediscover it and see if you can make it a part of your experience. Maybe not the way you did in the past, but find a way. Don't leave out the intimate face of God, and you're missing a lot. No, prayer and devotion were ways that all the mystics talked about experiencing oneness. Ken Wilber, who is one of the key philosophers in integral theory, says, this face of God is the most ego humbling. It catches what the first and third person miss. And we're limiting ourselves if we leave this face out. Now, this may sound a little bit out there to you, but this face also includes what we know as spirit guides and angels. And in the last few years, I have become so immensely aware of all the divine presences that are here to help us in life. And now I call upon them daily as part of my experience of the intimate face of God. It's interesting. Do you have guides? Do you have angels? Do you recognize them? For some people, it's Jesus. For some people, it's Mary. It could be a departed loved one. It could be some of the mystics, the saints that have a special place in your heart. Those are ways of connecting with the intimate face of God. And then there's the third, the face of God as God. And here's the question, is your God you enough? Big enough? Close enough? Now you enough? Are you and God truly one and the same? Not just in words, I'm talking about experientially. You know, a son or a daughter of an elephant is an elephant. A son and daughter of a dog or a cat is a dog or a cat. So it stands to reason that the sons and daughters of God are gods. What does that mean? I love what Jean Houston, I used to study with Jean Houston a long time ago, and she used to call us godlings. And I also heard her use a term recently called, we're baby divinity. I love that. I'm a baby divinity. But our truest, really deepest self is divine. And do we know that? Do we live that? Do we experience that? Do we see ourselves living as God? Do we feel it? You know, it's something we experience on a daily basis. And I mentioned Ken Wilber as one of the main voices behind integral theory. He says, the closer you get to your true self, the more fully one, even identical with God or spirit itself you become. That's what most of the spiritual teachers talk about as awakening, enlightenment, all those words, satori. They're talking about coming to truly experience that connection. There's a song when I had a church, I played Like You Do, Wonderful World. By the way, I love that song, and that video is awesome. And I used to play a song all the time called You Can Relax Now. And it's by Shana Knoll. I don't know if you know that song, but it's time to open your eyes. You had a dream, you misunderstood, you thought you were separate, but now you can hear God's voice and say, you can relax now. I love that. I love that. And when I am in life in stress, I realize I'm not feeling one with God. I'm feeling very separate. When I can totally relax and accept all that is happening, I recognize that oneness. So Integral teaches us a lot about oneness, and in particular about experiencing it through what we call integral life spiritual practice. And at the workshop today, we're going to take a look at what I believe is a missing piece in most of our spiritual experiences and practice. It's something that prayer, service, meditation alone can't do. It's really true emotional healing that we all need, requires that we do what is known as shadow work, and that our spiritual practice includes our body, our mind, our heart, and both physical and emotional work. So it's psychological/spiritual development. It demands that we understand what motivates us, what moves us to do the things we do, and what are our habitual ways of acting that we may not even recognize anymore because we're so used to being them. And that's what I'm going to be presenting this afternoon in the 2-hour presentation, which is an introduction to the Enneagram. And I have to underline, it's a real introduction. In 2 hours, I'm just going to lay out all of the possibilities that the Enneagram offers us in terms of spiritual growth. And I'm also going to try to introduce you to all the types. And some of you might even walk away knowing what your type is. And for some of you, you'll need to dig a little deeper than what we'll cover today. But I have found the Enneagram to be one of the most profound tools of all the things that I have done in my spiritual life. And trust me, I have done quite a few. So let me summarize before we end today with what I've been attempting to present here. To fully understand any experience, we need to look at it from 3 perspectives: the internal, or the I, the relational, or the you, and the factual, or the it. Think about that when you're having any experience. Are you aware of what's happening? What are the facts of what's happening? How am I feeling and how am I relating? And you'll find your experiences get richer when you see all 3. Most of us live in one or the other. We don't normally do all 3. So to truly have an experience of God, we need to develop practices that include all 3. The infinite God, the cosmic God, the all-inclusive God, not a being, but being itself, that in which we live and move and have our being. That's the 3rd face of God. And remember the question, is your God big enough? And then the intimate face, or the 2nd face, the other with whom we have a relationship. Is it Jesus? Is it a spiritual guide? Is it an ancestor, a saint, or one another? Is your God close enough? And finally, the inner God, the God within, the one in New Thought, we talk a lot about that, our truest self, the experience of complete and total oneness with God. Is your God you enough? So you might consider this as a daily practice. You can start or end your day with this practice. I'm going to do it once, and then I'm going to ask you to end with me and repeat it. And the first is simply and we're going to do some hand motions. So hopefully you can see them on Zoom here. But the first is to the infinite, then to the intimate, then to the inner. So infinite God, put your hands up. Infinite God, in whom we live and move and have our being. And then hands to your heart. Intimate God, you are always with us. And intimate God is the God out there. So we put our hands out there. Intimate God, you are always with us. And then the inner God is hands on your heart. We are the light of the world. I'm going to repeat that one more. Hands up, infinite God, in whom we live and move and have our being. Intimate God, you are always with us. Inner God, we are the light of the world. Thank you.
So I would like to offer to do just a brief closing treatment on that message. Oh my goodness. Just almost like that moment that Reverend Toni described when she stepped out onto that iceberg. I have just stepped out onto the iceberg, and I invite you to step with me into this incredibly expanded open space. And as Pat so readily teaches us, we begin our prayer with thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Reverend Toni. Thank you to every individual that's been here today to share this experience. It is cumulative, and each and every one is a part of it. And I am just so incredibly inspired and grateful to know that this is where we've come to, and this is where we begin. Oh my goodness. Open to the possibilities now. And so I invite each and every one of us from that space of recognition, knowing that we're unified in this moment, to realize the desires of your heart coming from that integral place that it is all operative. All the phases that we've been talking about, whomever you met when we did the meditation this morning, it's all operative in each of our systems individually and collectively. And oh my goodness, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And so just release it with me into the law, knowing it is done individually and collectively. We let it be, and so it is. And now we move on to our time of prosperity. And who doesn't feel that wave of prosperity right now? Let's just take a breath. Take a breath and let what has been settle that much deeper, knowing that this opens our time of gratitude specifically for talents, times, and treasures, of which we all can feel that flow in this moment. And with regard to your tithes, we are so grateful. Thank you for your givingness of your presence. Thank you for your givingness of your financial support. And remember, all your options are in the chat. If you just click the chat button on the bottom toolbar, you'll see where we have the address for mailing checks. You can give by PayPal. You can give by Giveify. And as you consider all of that, we have our prosperity affirmation for this month. So I'm going to say it once, and then I invite you to say it with me. Nature is naturally abundant, and so am I. Nature is naturally abundant, and so am I. Praise God. And Pat, for our blessing.
One God, one life, one supply. Thank you for being the light from within that halos our time, talents, and treasures, and causes us to understand that the flow of all three from us is the same flow that circles back to us multiplied. We are grateful to be blessed in such ways, both as a sinner and individually. So blessing the gift and the giver, and our sinner that is the blessed receiver. So with great gratitude, I lift these words of appreciation into the law that only says yes, and I release them there to become evident. And so it is.
And so it is. Now for our announcements. So today, as has been explicated, if you are available to stay with us from noon to 2, you can just take this whole thing that much further. And if you're not able to be here today, in all kinds of ways, we will be carrying this forward. So just know that you won't be left out. And there's the information for you. It's just the same Zoom link, so you don't even have to click off. We're not going to close the Zoom today. So you can just come back and like Pat said, go and grab yourself a quick bite after we close, and we'll start again at noon, and it will be turned back over to Reverend Toni.
Reverend Toni.
And Reverend Toni, you are unmuted. If you'd like to say anything more.
No, just would welcome all of you to come and join us and to come and experience, hopefully, a little bit more of who you are as the divine revelation. I think one of the main points that I make here is that each of us are a spark of God. Learn what kind of spark you are.
Yay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And our next announcement, this coming Thursday is men's group at 6:30 on this same Zoom. And then just anybody, if you know guys in your life that could be supported by that, don't hesitate to let them know, and we will put them on the email for the reminders. I'm speaking next week. I will take the opportunity to say that owing with the overall theme of nature, it's going to be really, really fun. You wouldn't believe there's a whole universe around the insects of our world, and they have a lot to teach us. I'm excited, and I hope that you'll be here for that. And I'm going to turn this over to Pat now. This is our beloved Jerry. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, many of you know Jerry Waltz from when we were in person for years and years. And Jerry has been ill and bedridden for a long time and did make her transition. What day was that?
It was August the 10th. It was the
August.
evening of August the 10th.
And so we just wanted to let you know so that we know she is in a grand place, but we will miss her. And that beautiful face, I always told Jerry that she was like the love child of Doris Day and Marilyn Monroe. She was just the sweetest thing and the most beautiful person. So we will miss her. And we did not want to let this go without mentioning it to you, because we know many of you are friends with Jerry. So.
And I'll just say, just very quickly on that note, I know many of you might want to think about sending a card or something like that. And we're working on that information. Her family's still working out what they want to do. And if and when we get information of that nature, I will be passing it along to you. And so just stay tuned. And if you have any questions or you feel incomplete in any way about Jerry, don't hesitate to contact Pat or I. We'll be happy to support you.
Absolutely.
And of course, you are magnificent.
Yes, you are. And our closing song, Holy Now by Peter Mayer.
When I was a boy each week, on Sunday we would go to church, pay attention to the priest. He would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. And when I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad, miracles don't happen still. Now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, to finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips, but now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second rate hand me down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second rate hand me down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
Abba, 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 infinite, intimate, and inner. Ending this service as we began, for the collective, I say thank you. Thank you, Spirit, for this center and others like it where we can come and learn this philosophy that teaches us that God is within and we are never separated, not now, not ever. Thank you for helping us apply what we learn here to our day-to-day lives, where it brings us and others joyful blessings and stability. Because we are indeed blessed to have this day, our yesterday, and all of our tomorrows, rewarded by our interconnectedness. We are simply blessed and we know it, and we appreciate all we have and all we are capable of being when we accept who we are and whose we are. And on these and multiple other gratitudes for so many wonderful blessings, I lift these words into a law that always says yes, automatically and impartially, and there I release them. And so it is.